Hey guys, happy Halloween! So this is going to be the final video for Halloween season 2015, and this one was one of the most requested videos this year. There are a ton of SFX Freddy inspired looks out there, so I decided to stay true to myself and do some body painting. So I hope that you guys will enjoy my Freddy inspired look. And as always, all of my social media links as well as the products used, the music, the camera, all that jazz will be down in the description. And this was also a collab with Denean Dale. She did a fun Jason mask, so go check her out. I'll leave her links down below as well. And let's get into it. So for this look, I'm starting out with my brows already blocked. If you want to know how I do that, you can check down in the description. I'll also have it linked in the video. And now I'm going in with a brown lip liner. I like to use these ones because they're pretty easy to wipe away. And I'm first starting out by giving myself kind of a furrowed, angry brow. So I'm curving my line up around the inner part of the brow and then swooping up for an arch. You can make this flatter if you want to. I decided to make it pretty dramatic. And then proceed to look like an angry person for the rest of the video. Now I'm lining from the inner part of the brow down onto kind of the eye bag, and then we're going to start sketching out all of our burns. And the best thing that I can recommend for this part is to just Google Freddy Krueger or Freddy Krueger makeup, because there are several different versions. And that way you can kind of see what you like, what you don't like. You could make like a face chart if you wanted to, if that would be easier. I am just going from a few reference photos that I have and then just letting my hand move around my face pretty much. And then I'm also going to darken and define some of the wrinkles, like the nasal labial folds, and then up around the nostrils and also down from the corners of the mouth, just to give me a super grumpy, mean look. Then I'm just going to continue roughing out all my burns, and you can do as few or as many as you want in whatever sizes and shapes. There are some teardrop shapes and kind of rectangles, triangles, all with pretty rounded edges. And don't worry if it's looking a hot mess, because we're going to go in and define everything later. This is just so we can get an idea of what we want our face to look like. I'm then going to block out the color of my lips using a concealer from NYX, and I'm just going to set that with a powder foundation. I also opted to paint on my sweater rather than buy one, so I'm just marking out where I want the neck to go right now so I know how far down to take my burns. I'm also going to create a few wrinkles down on my neck. I'm going to speed through a lot of this process just because it is kind of repetitive, so I hope you guys don't mind. I'm going to do that a couple times because I still wanted to include the footage, but it's a lot of footage, so I'm just going to speed it up. I hope you guys enjoy watching it. And you can also see that I'm doing just some lines and wrinkles among the burns, and this is to start giving us sort of the idea of texture on the skin. And then once I think I'm happy with my burns, I'm just going to look over the entire thing and see if I want to add anything else. So I'm just going through and adding some small burns throughout. And like I said, you can do as many or as few as you want. I decided to pretty much fill up my entire face without it looking too extremely crazy. So now I'm going to continue sketching out my sweater, starting with the collar, and I'm also going to make little marks along the collar to represent the ribbing. I'm not worried about the top of the collar right now. We'll go in and add some rips and things later on, but now we're going to go in and mark out the stripes as well as the seams. And these stripe lines don't need to be straight since they are a loose fabric. They will have some curves and wrinkles to them. So here we are, all sketched out. Now with this small smudgy eyeshadow brush and a dark brown eyeshadow, I'm going to start doing some of the contouring. So I'm going to contour from the inner part of the brows down the sides of the nose. You can make this wider if you want to widen your nose. I kind of kept mine a little bit wider but not too wide. And then I'm also going to shade underneath that furrowed brow to add some depth. I'm adding a little bit of shading around the crease and under the eye as well. And I'm using this NYX Wonder Pencil in light to lighten up any shadows when I need to, and then using the brown to deepen any shadows. I'm also going to blend up onto the furrowed brow a little bit, just because if it were really there, it would be a little bit curved. So we wouldn't want a super sharp line there, we would want it a bit softer. Then I'm also going to contour the tip of my nose with a V shape to make it quite a bit more pointy. Then I'm going to continue deepening the contours around the nose and the mouth. And then also the neck. The next thing we're going to want to do is start defining and darkening our burns. So I'll be using a red body paint on my Sigma E11, which is just a fine detail brush. And you could also go in with a lighter pink if you want more of the scar look rather than the fresh burns look. So I'm just going to start adding this to all of the burns. It's going to be different on each of the burns because naturally they would all look pretty different as far as the deepness and darkness and shade would go, with the exception of the really small ones, because those ones I'm just going to completely fill with red. And as for the larger ones, I'm starting by outlining them and then I'll work on shading them in towards the center. Some of them I'll fill in all the way, some of them I will just take it in a little bit. And I'm using this brush to just kind of give it a stringy texture. I don't want this to look smooth or too nice. And a tip for the shading, where you want it to be the darkest, you want to apply the most pressure, and then as you blend it out, you want to start applying less and less pressure. And then for the stringy texture, I am constantly changing the pressure that I have on my brush so that it will go from thick to thin and it'll look a little bit uneven. This part is not extremely difficult, but it does take a lot of time. And you also want to be sure not to forget about your ears. And then, like I did with the lip liner before, I'm going to look over the entire thing and see if there are any spots where I want to add any more burns. And then I'm going to add more wrinkles around the burns with this red as well. Before I put my red away, I'm going to get a bigger brush and start painting on the stripes on my sweater. And I'm painting the entire collar red as well. And man, I don't know what it was about being Freddy, but I just felt like dancing the entire video. Now I'm going in with a red eyeshadow and very lightly applying this around the eyes. Then to lighten it up even more, I'm going in with this very pale pink eyeshadow and I'm blending that over top, and then I'm going to start blending this actually into the burn area. And since we did use a water activated paint for all the burns, we can lightly blend over them without transferring too much color. And the amount of color that it does transfer is actually beneficial for this look to give us more of a pinky tone. If we were doing this with a cream makeup, well, we would not want to do this with a cream makeup because the cream would go everywhere and our face would be red. So now I'm mixing a lime green and black body paint to get the right green for my green stripe on my sweater, and then I'm just going to fill that in. Now I'm going back in with my dark brown eyeshadow. I felt like my bottom lip was looking a little bit too full, so I'm just going to contour the very outside corners of that to make it a little bit thinner. Then keeping with that brown eyeshadow, we're going to start adding some depth to the burns. And again, the shading on each of the burns for the most part is going to be a little bit different. The deeper that you want your burn to be, the darker and wider the shadow will be against the edge of the burn. And then for the smaller burns, I'm going to focus my shadow on the biggest part of that burn and then drag my brush out as I start releasing pressure from the brush so that the line will fade. Kind of like I did with the body paint, I'm going to focus the shadow around the outline first and then I will start shading it in toward the center. I'm going to use a black eyeshadow to black out where parts of the ear have actually burned off. Now I'm going to go back in with my red body paint to start creating some rips in the top of the collar. Then I'm going in with a black body paint to outline the entire collar. And I'm also going to create some frayed edges coming down from the top of the collar. With the tiniest bit of black paint on my brush, I'm going to go back in and kind of squiggle back and forth to add in the ribbing along the collar. I'm also using the black body paint to define all the seams and stripes, and then I'm going in with a red eyeshadow and I'm blending that along the collar to kind of soften that ribbing. Then I'm taking a smaller blending brush with some brown and black eyeshadow on it, and I'm going to shade along the top of that ripped collar. And this is going to help separate the sweater from our skin so that it doesn't look like it is just sitting completely flat. Once I have everything lined, I'm going back in with that brown and black eyeshadow to shade along each of those lines, and I'm giving it a rough, smudgy look. Then I'm using a red shadow to blend over the red stripes and a green eyeshadow to blend over the green stripes. And you'll want to use shades that are pretty close to your actual body paint color. Then I'm just going to go in and add some more smudging with the brown and black eyeshadows, and then I'm going to use a white eyeshadow to add some highlights. So the last thing we need to do is add some highlighting around the burns. You want to use a concealer that's a little bit lighter than the base color that you have. And I'm starting out by adding some underneath the eyes, to the brow bone, and then just above the crease. And I'm going to blend that all out, and then we're going to get into the burns. So basically we're going to outline each of the burns using this concealer, and I'm using a really small pointed angled brush. If you feel like you need a more dramatic highlight, you could go in with a white eyeliner or a white cream makeup. I'm highlighting around each of the burns a little bit differently. Some of them I'm lining around the top, some around the full shape, And then I do want to blend out the lines a little bit. I don't want them to be too sharp, but I don't want them to be completely blended out. And to add even more dimension, you could go in with a couple different colors of concealers, or you could use a white as well as a light concealer. You can play around with it a little bit and see what works best for you. So once we've highlighted around all the burns, I'm using that same brush and concealer to start creating some more texture on the skin. I'm taking this in between all the burns where I have little gaps, and I'm just going to stroke it back and forth and kind of flow it in between each of the burns, kind of like when we were adding the lines and wrinkles with the brown and red, except this time it's a highlight, so it's going to add a little bit more dimension. And then I decided to add a little bit of clear mascara to the lashes just to help get rid of any powder that may have fallen. And then originally I was going to get some nicotine colored tooth enamel, but I kind of forgot. So I tried to make this little paint using toothpaste and some icing colorings, which looked alright, but it ended up coming off really easily even when it totally dried. So it was kind of a fail, but oh well. And then the glove is from razorgloves.com. They have several different styles and they are all completely handmade by Chris Grantner. So I will leave a link below because, I mean, look at it. It's amazing. And then the hat is just a regular brown fedora that I got at the Halloween store, and I distressed it and painted it myself using body paints and eyeshadows, and it's way too big for my head, but what are you gonna do? Then I was going to use my Ben Nye Final Seal to set everything, but I didn't have that around, so I'm just using the NYX Dewy Setting Spray, and we're done. You're now ready to haunt the dreams of your worst enemies. So get out there, scare some people. I hope you guys had fun and a safe Halloween. I hope you enjoyed this video as well as the rest of the videos from this Halloween season. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.